Throughout skateboarding's history, skaters have always tried to find the best way to document what we do. But over time, there's been one single camera that stood out among the endless amounts of choices and formats, from camcorders to DSLRs to action cams to cinema-grade setups. So popular that the camera's look and sound have become synonymous with skate videos from both the past and the present. That camera is Sony's now infamous DCR VX1000, also known simply as the VX. Although digital video was available to professional television and movie producers beginning in the late 80s, amateur filmmakers had to wait until 1995 for Sony to release the VX1000, the first consumer-level digital video camera, and its accompanying mini DV tapes. Jay Sato, vice president of Sony's personal video division from 1990 to 1998, oversaw the entire design and production of the VX1000, initially aiming for the broadcast industry as their primary market, mostly television stations and newscasters. In the early 90s, most news crews shooting outside a TV studio used huge, shoulder-mounted camcorders that recorded onto Betacam tapes, themselves only slightly smaller than VHS tapes. That setup was inconvenient and not conducive to much camera movement or travel, plus it cost a shit ton. But with the VX1000, Sony took the power and quality of professional-grade equipment and shrank everything down into a compact camcorder that even amateurs could afford. Reporters saw using the expensive Betacam camcorders as too high of a risk in many situations, for example covering natural disasters like forest fires or floods. But with the VX1000, they could now use a lightweight, relatively cheap camera to get high-quality footage of dangerous events without having to worry about the financial burden of damaging the camera. They could even hand the camera over to Shaq to catch a second angle on the dunk contest. At the same time, it allowed a lot of amateur people to get involved in documenting a story they wanted to tell. This included low-budget skateboarders, as well as filmmakers and higher-end businesses. Something like porn. Sato and his team began seeing large sales of VX1000s heading to the San Fernando Valley, the Southern Californian hotbed of the porn industry. Getting back orders of up to 10 at a time from individual customers, after looking into it, they realized the camcorders were going to porn producers looking to strip down from the more cumbersome film cameras. High quality, improved low-light performance, and a great zoom helped these filmmakers capture every nook and cranny of their talent for a low cost. Famed pornographer John Buttman Stagliano found the VX1000 perfectly suited for filming the gonzo style of pornography he pioneered in the 90s. Stagliano states, "It was way better quality and allowed me more flexibility and speed to move around and set up the dialogue. With the quality and ease of use, people who had been actors could shoot, and people who had good ideas could shoot. So you had people who were into porn shooting porn. That was the key, because that's what gonzo really is. It's intimate, it's real, and it was huge for porn." And the intimacy and flexibility the VX brought to gonzo porn worked just as well for skating. Making skate videos in the pre-VX era was a fiddly mess. There was no standard in terms of camera or format, and filmmakers were mostly using whatever they could get. Even if the high 8 or VHS tapes used didn't glitch, the filmers were still at risk of having their footage lost or damaged on its way to whichever video editor it was sent to. With high 8, there wasn't even a way to duplicate the footage without degrading the quality, so the original tape had to be sent in. Before the VX's introduction of DV and Firewire, few filmers could even transfer footage to a computer. Often they edited directly from one VHS to another using their home VCRs. It also wasn't unheard of for skaters' entire video parts to get lost in the haphazard network of mailing out tapes. With all these problems stemming from the disorder of tapes, the skate industry needed a solution to the difficulties of filming and editing skate videos. Because of this, the VX came out at the perfect time to serve as that solution to an industry in need. In 1996, while filming for Girl Skateboard's Mouse, Aaron Meza got a call to pick up a new camera before leaving for a skate trip to Vancouver. It was the VX1000. Looking back on his first experience with the camera, he states, "The first day we went to Vancouver, Eric Costin did a nollie nose blindside and nose grinded a long square rail. I think it was literally the first day I filmed with it. All the footage is darker than it should be because I was trying to figure it out." Those tricks ended up in Mouse, and, as far as we can tell, they're the first skate clips ever filmed on a VX1000. Word of the camcorder spread among skateboarders as other filmers and photographers saw Meza using the VX1000, but it didn't really come into its own until 1998 when Century Optics released the Mark I fisheye lens. At 4.5 inches wide, the big bubbly Mark I transformed the VX1000 into the ultimate tool for translating skateboarding's awesomeness onto a screen. Dan Wolf was the first filmer to have the Mark I, and he remembers spotting it in a catalog. The first clips Wolf filmed with it ended up in Element Skateboard's World Tour video that came out in 2000. On a session at the Santa Monica Triple Set, Wolf was filming fish with the Mark I. Atiba Jefferson was shooting photos at the same session and was amazed at the sight of Wolf's new lens. Dan recalled Atiba excitedly encouraging Ty Evans to see the crazy lens that Wolf was using. And by the end of 1999, every legitimate skateboard filmer had a Mark I for their VX1000, and for the next decade, it was basically the only camcorder skateboarders used. This period of time between 2000 and 2007 may be the most profound time ever for skate videos. Videos that progressed and defined modern skateboarding and skate video filmmaking. Photosynthesis, yeah right, this is skateboarding, the DC video, Baker 3, Fully Flared, were all released during those years, and they all featured footage filmed on the VX1000. The VX1000 and Century Optics Mark I fisheye lens just seemed to be the perfect fit for skating. The Mark I, better known as the Death Lens, is still the biggest, roundest fisheye available. The VX's top-mounted handle and light weight made the camcorder easy to hold and stabilize when cruising around, and it was durable enough to sustain being dropped or smacked by an errant skateboard. Well, almost.
I can't believe it.
We fucked up, man. I didn't came to Leon to break your fucking fisheye, man.
Skate video output and quality ramped up so much during the early 2000s, it changed many skateboarders' relationship to skating itself. In a Skateboard Mag article titled, "Has This Thing Ruined Skateboarding?", pro skaters aired their frustrations about how the VX1000 was putting so much more emphasis on filming, with Anthony Van Engelen comparing the pressure of landing tricks perfectly on camera to achieving an orgasm. The culmination of VX1000-induced progression was 2007's Fully Flared, a video that took 4 years to make and for which filmer Ty Evans hooked up his VX1000 to elaborate dolly and crane equipment previously unheard of in skate videos. By this time, Sony had stopped manufacturing the VX1000 in place of the updated VX2000 and VX2100, which skate filmers generally avoided for several reasons, like its inferior microphone and less neutral color science. Around the same time, Panasonic had released an HD camera, the AG HVX200, that, when paired with an even wider Century Optics fisheye lens, could capture skateboarding at a higher quality. In terms of storing footage, the HVX made the process simpler and more reliable than the VX, just like how the VX improved memory storage compared to tape cameras. Panasonic's HVX200 used solid-state memory cards that provided greater, sturdier, and more compact storage than many DV tapes, which could occasionally glitch. Evans started using the HVX200 towards the end of Fully Flared, and after the video's release, he decided his next project should be shot entirely in HD, even if most of skateboarding at the time wasn't interested in making the switch. But even though Ty led the charge into HD and influenced both industry and independent filmers alike, there's a reason the VX1000 had lasted as long as it did, and skating wasn't necessarily ready to leave behind the camera and format that had created its biggest videos for the last decade. And it wasn't entirely out of habit that skateboarders clung to the VX1000. Very few HD cameras have the top-mounted handle needed to not drop a camcorder while jamming down the street. The Mark I lens's circular shape is also ideal for keeping skateboarders right in the center of the frame without showing too much of the environment either ahead or behind them. The HVX200's fisheye is rectangular, which not only risks cutting off the skater's head or board when you try to keep them centered, but makes oncoming obstacles move more slowly into frame, deadening the spontaneity and excitement that makes skate videos worth watching in the first place. If the Mark I is like a spotlight, focusing only on what the skater is doing right now, the HVX200's fisheye is a floodlight, giving too much away all at once. By the early 2010s, more filmers were using HD camcorders like the HVX200, and senior guys were moving on to the realm of 4K Ultra HD. In response, younger filmers who grew up watching classic VX1000 videos chose to stick with the camcorder that felt truer to their memories of skateboarding. Brian Panebianco's Sabotage videos and Ryan Garshell's GX1000 series both became adored by skateboarders across the lo-fi to high-def spectrum. The VX1000 quite literally became a label of authenticity. HD skate videos are rarely labeled HD, but when companies film videos on a VX1000, they jump to titles of cringy puns like V-Extinct, V-Extras, and V-Exclusive. Top-tier pros like Shane O'Neill, who we usually find filmed in HD, use VX1000 footage to seem more raw, and younger filmers often grab VX1000s to align themselves with the older, core side of skateboarding. But if the VX1000 is a ticket to legitimacy, available to any skateboarder with a couple $100, it risks diluting the same distinction it's supposed to preserve between the skateboarders busting their asses in the streets, the ones actually making skateboarding cool, and the wannabe skateboarders who just consume skateboarding culture. Filmers like Dan Wolf worry about what it means for kids to be using VXs, questioning whether the camera is being used to make a video or to have an accessory. But fortunately, filmers like Panebianco, Garcelle, and a handful of other VX1000 disciples are making sure the camcorder keeps its cred. Josh Stewart backs this up by saying, "There's a movement of paying homage to the things that made skateboarding feel raw in the 90s and early 2000s that are less attainable now. When I was a kid, you were hated on for being a skater, and it made it feel much more special. Now, skateboarding's hugely popular, so kids find ways to make their style of skating a subculture, and the VX is one of those things that keeps it underground." For Panebianco, the VX1000 isn't just a way for him to make projects inspired by raw skate videos like Photosynthesis. It allows him to relive that history. He says, "Looking through the VX at Love Park a year or two ago, it kind of was like a time machine. Same exact camera, same lens." The fact that filmers like Panebianco and Stewart, as well as younger kids just starting out, are able to buy VX1000s 16 years after Sony stopped manufacturing them in 2001 says a lot about skateboarders' dedication to the old camcorder. VX1000 setups can still be found on eBay for less than comparable HD setups, and websites like VX1000 Market have made a business of selling refurbished ones. While every damaged or broken VX1000 brings the global supply ever closer to zero, there are a few camera shops saving the camcorder from extinction. Kerry Adams owns Video Electronics in Boston, and he's earned a reputation as the guy for VX1000 repairs. When asked to name some of the countries he's received repair orders from, he said, "VX1000s arrive from all over the world. The countries not represented would be a shorter list. As long as I'm working, the VX1000 will go on. After that, they'll become shelf ornaments, each with hundreds of stories." So with the supply of VXs continuing to shrink and the fate of the Mark I in question, we do need to start wondering how many more miles the VX has left. What we do know, however, is that when the VX1000 finally does fall out of use among skateboarders, in 5, 10, maybe even 20 years, that date won't signify much. The VX1000's contribution to skateboarding is that it gave skateboarders everywhere a standard to live up to for filming skate videos and preserving skateboard history. That contribution won't be erased simply when the world runs out of VX1000s, because it has already been living on in the progression of skate videos since the late 90s and early 2000s. Before the VX1000, it was hard to make a good-looking skate video that was actually visually and orally pleasing to consume, and many videos in the late 80s and early 90s were not. After the VX1000 though, big skateboarding brands could make beautiful, timeless videos, and no-name skateboarders could also film and edit videos just like the pros. The VX1000 was a landmark step in solidifying filmed skating as the central goal and product of skateboarding in general. It's democratized the preservation of our culture forevermore. The VX could die tomorrow, but we'll never be able to lose sight of its influence.